feeling the vibes and ambience of the action, the Lagos #EndBadGovernance protesters in action on Monday. It is the day after their gathering was attacked by hoodlums, forcing an abrupt end. But rather than discouraging, it will seem their passion for the rally became more inflamed.
The commander of the Air Forces, is that not what he's called? Who named him the commander of the youth? Who named President Tinubu the commander of Nigeria's youth? So what right has he? What power has he to then tell us that as soon as he has spoken, we have no right to gather again? And I remember something.
With Sunday's development, many believed the protest might have seen its end, especially with these pronouncements.
The organizers have decided to call it off. The president has spoken, and they are looking forward to the president's meeting the demands they have represented before him.
Thank you very much.
So, in view of that, there will be no more gathering here or anywhere. Any of such gathering is unlawful and illegal, and if such gathering exists, we are going to apply the full weight of the law.
Perhaps the reason why the Gani Fawehinmi Park was initially locked on Monday until the police commissioner himself arrived and directed otherwise. That cleared the coast for the rally to begin in earnest, with a call for immediate silence for some of their fellow protesters killed in other parts of the country.
Can you hear Nigerians are dying?
A Congress where they analyzed the president's broadcast to the nation.
President Tinubu's broadcast, first and foremost, is a sign that this our movement, whether they like it or not, they can no more ignore us. And I think that we must recognize that even though that broadcast did not address any of our demands, the mere fact that the president himself was forced to recognize the fact that Nigerian youth are protesting. When a few days ago, they were saying that we had no right to protest, we were thugs, we were miscreants, we were misconduct, we would be killed, we would not be allowed to go out. The mere fact that he spent 10 minutes trying to talk to us is a sign that whether they like it or not, they can no more ignore this.
And a couple of demands, including a call for the resignation of the Inspector General of Police.
The demand that we newly added, and it's the demand for the sack of the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbedokun, and who at any rate has been stylishly has been lobbying to illegally extend a stay in office, because other things being equal, Egbedokun should be retiring. But beyond that, we are demanding a sack and holding him accountable for the lives that have been lost over the past 5 days since the protests have commenced.
Rescue me from poverty, this protester cried out to President Bola Tinubu. With means of livelihood severely threatened, the protest gave him the only opportunity to fully express his plight, he claimed. Going on his knees, he begged for some policy tweak that could at least improve his situation and that of many others like him. Tokunbo Oyetunji, Arise News, Lagos.
In the meantime, the recent nationwide protests over hunger and the spread of poverty in the land
was considered threatening to the boundaries of civic space by the authorities, which in turn led to the deployment of security agencies. One of the key triggers of this security intervention was the provocative introduction of a foreign nation's flag by protesters in some states in the northern part of the country. Meanwhile, arguments have been flying back and forth regarding what constitutes flying foreign flag and the consequences of doing so in a sovereign state like Nigeria. In a related development, Poland has denied that some of its nationals who were arrested by security operatives in Kano, Nigeria, waved the Russian flag. The detained Poles were arrested on August 6 in Kano for allegedly displaying the Russian flag during the hashtag End Bad Governance protest held by some Nigerians against economic hardship in the country. 6 citizens of Spain were also arrested in connection with the allegation. The Southeast Caucus of the National Assembly has called on Inspector General of the Police, Kayode Egbetogun, to arrest and prosecute promoters of Igbo-phobia in the southwest of the country. In a petition signed by the leader of the caucus, Senator Inaya Baribe, and the leader of the House of Representatives, Igrewe Idoma Enwo, the lawmakers called the attention of the police chief to a bigoted anti-Igbo tweet made on July the 27th on the X account of Lagos PD account, where Lagosians and every Southwest stakeholders were asked to prepare for a massive protest against Igbo in Lagos and every other state in Yoruba land. The National Assembly group noted that these calls for the extermination of Igbo were reminiscent of the anti-Igbo campaigns of the 1950s, which culminated in bloody pogroms of 1966 and eventually led to an even bloodier civil war between 1967 and 1970. I'm now being joined by lawyer and public affairs analyst Dr. Chima Nnaji to have a quick take on the hunger protest, flying a foreign flag in Nigeria and exposing the evil that called for ethnic cleansing in Nigeria. Good to have you, sir, on this day live. Pleasure to have you. Let's start with the protest, and good to see you again.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I mean, what's your take as regards the protest and all the rigmarole that happened even before the protest? And, the lack of respect of the civil space as regards protesters harmed in some parts of the country.
Well, Rufai, thank you once again, and good evening, viewers, and good evening to your guests in the studio, too. Well, that protest ought not to have happened if certain steps were taken. It's better to prevent an ailment than run around for its treatment, because it might be more expensive with a higher risk of death. There is a saying that you cannot beat a child and prevent it from crying. It's a constitutional and natural right that when you cause pain, the person should be able to let you know that he or she is under pain. You may have done certain things inadvertently or with certain presumption that the person is capable of papering over the pain. I think Nigerians had the right to, as every member of the government acknowledged. But what I found very strange is when you recognize somebody's right to express himself or herself in a protest, then you now say, but they should not do it. I think that was very condescending. And it showed the kind of advice they were now giving the president, because Aso Rock, unfortunately, Ruben is not there to help us say what happens to somebody who gets ensconced in the comfort of that Aso Rock. Because it appears there is a way of, it makes people shielded from the complaints of those who are being governed, so to speak. So I think it was necessary that Nigerians expressed their view peacefully, but it couldn't have been necessary, or it wouldn't have been necessary to have allowed that protest go, because we know that when protests are handled in an open space, there are chances, which they also acknowledged, that might be hijacked, because the cliche has become hijack. And it is because you know that an armed robber might come by 12 noon. That's intelligence. It should be able to make you prepare for the apprehension or prevention of that crime. So those people who were legitimately in the protest ought to have been better protected, separated from the so-called hoodlums that have become the refrain of the security agencies. The issue of protest, as Nigerians say, they are hungry, and we all feel it, because you say it, but you feel it too. You express it by that protest. It's consistent with the saying, an aphorism, that it is only because the corpse did not talk. That was why it was headed to the grave.
Okay.
But if it has sneezed, for example, the undertakers would have done something differently from heading.
Okay, okay.
So I think the protest has sent a message, and I think it is within the purview of government to now take these things very seriously and address some of these things, where some of them are very difficult to redress immediately. They should communicate that with some respect, not a condescending talk to people as if they are slaves.
Dr. Nnaji, let's talk about the violence. What led to the violence in your own estimation, and was it needed? The killings, close to 20 people lost their lives, and the conduct of the police. In fact, a firm supporter of this administration, Professor Wole Soyinka, had to write a very big condemnation against the police and how it was handled. What's your take on this?
Well, from the reports we got, because I was not in the field, I monitored these things basically from your station and social media and so on. That even surprisingly, that some people were fingered in Kano. Some members of, they reported some members of the APC were part and parcel of those who sent anti-protesters. And when you send anti-protesters to confront the protesters, there's a saying that a son sent to rob by his father normally breaks the door with ignominy. So they will know that they have the backing of the powers that be. And so they might inflict so much wound and the threat to the actual protesters whose faces were known and who had properly identified themselves. Incidentally, one of them is sitting down there, and nobody will say that they were wearing masks. So the fact that they went to attack them, even when they recognized that they had been involved in their exercise of their constitutional rights, that was the setting that gave room for this drag that then brought in the security agencies, some of whom are not even aware that the protest was also for their own betterment. Because if they now get some increment in their salaries or certain improvement in certain amenities, would they shun those things on account of the fact that they worked against the protest? I mean, the mentality of the security agencies must change. It is not a measure of prowess that they have to be combative every time. In fact, it has always been said that power, when exercised with utmost humility, speaks most potently. Okay. You don't give a child a kick on the head because you have the capacity to knock him when he does anything wrong. Okay. It is better when you refrain from using your force.
Okay, Mr. Nnaji, what about the argument on the side of the government that says it was hijacked and there were some protesters that didn't conduct themselves and that led to the use of tear gas? Okay, like some places in Abuja, for instance, there were some protesters that damaged the cars of people and that led to the use of tear gas. What will you say about that?
If it was indeed the protesters, because they also acknowledged that these things were hijacked by hoodlums. And you see, the thing is that when you are involved in an open protest and you are the one known as either leading the protest or participating in the protest, your face is known. You are most unlikely to engage in a physical contestation with any opposing force because you are harmless, you are armless. So when other ones come and they are faceless, they can cause, under the shadow of darkness or facelessness, anybody can, following the groupthink, be more dangerous than he would have been in his domestic setting. So the point I'm making is that I do not know the point at which this thing started being somehow riotous, but with my background in psychology, I know that a stimulus gives room for a response.
Action and reaction are equal and opposite. Another part I'd like to talk to you about is...
Absolutely. If you go physics, in its physics, physics said it.
Another part I'd like to talk to you about is, apart from the Newton's law of motion, is the fact that they argue, and I'm saying when I say they, I mean the government, argue that, oh, it was going to be hijacked, and we started to see flags of Russia. A couple of arrests we've made, we've not seen the end of that. And I mean, the chaos and the violence that came out of the north. And the question is, why was it from that part of the country? Why was Kano hijacked? Why was Gombe hijacked? Why was Kaduna hijacked?
Well, I can only reason in a logical sense, and I hope it might be able to rub off on the facts or possible facts that may have given rise to such development. You see, the poverty in the north is higher than the one in the south, if truth must be told. Not because Nigeria underdeveloped them, but that their leaders, their own people, deliberately kept them under the bridge, so to speak. What with all the resources, enormous and monumental resources that have been moved from the south to the north, our national patrimony, under different canopies and contraptions. But the poverty there, and even till today now, recently, many of the northern people are now crying. Some of the leaders of the north, some of them political leaders, some of them clergy and all that, are now shouting, recognizing the fact that this thing, when you have poverty, and then you add it abject poverty. You see, Rufai, poverty has gradations, you know. And the one in the north, when you have some of these almajiris and what have you, is abject poverty. The abject poverty is the one that you see a shoe going down, the sole and the heel are going down, and you cannot do anything about it. You wear a t-shirt, and that t-shirt is tearing on your body under sun and rain, and you cannot do anything about it. And in your stomach, there is nothing, and you don't know when the next meal will come, and so on and so forth, that you must get down to the level of begging and all that. Some of these things don't happen so much in the south. It's a different thing altogether. But down there, they had accepted, because of the refrain of religion, that everything is by Allah. Allah, the way Allah does not will that anybody should be poor. And now they are beginning to see. That's why when there was this room for them to express themselves, they had to become a little bit more violent. Even though some people may be thinking that it was actually directed at the center as such, it was simply an opportunity. The displacement of aggression is the opportunism that follows it. Okay. If somebody slapped you when you were in the office, you can come home and just a slight mention of anything, the man can descend on his wife. Okay. Without knowing that the problem was from the office. Okay, so you said probably, yeah, because of the poverty situation, that's why the violence was heightened in the north. But I disagree. Poverty is a general thing that gave rise to the protest. But the one in the north was more endemic. Okay, so, but I disagree with you when you say, oh, people will not react because they say, oh, Allah, maybe because of religion, No, I don't think any religion will say openly you should accept your fate of poverty just like that when people's lives can be a whole lot better. But that was the preachment. That was the preachment before now. So, but in the old north, but in fact, the Al-Majiri system, the students fended for their teachers. No, okay, so because they were given the. So hang on a minute. So the fact is, can you hear me, sir? The fact is, their leadership has. Yes, I can hear you. The fact is, their leadership has let them down, and that's the truth of the matter. So I don't like when we bring religion into it. No, absolutely. Whatever preachment you say that. But what did they use to hold them? No, they used religion and ethnicity to hold them down. That is the point we are making. Anybody can. It's not a derogatory statement. Even the leaders of the North now have acknowledged that they are comparing the poverty in the north, the effect of religion, and Saudi Arabia, and the Dubai, and so on.
Hang on a minute. Anybody can use any narrative to hold people down. The grand concept is the failure of leadership that causes poverty. And what is poverty? Passing over opportunities regularly. The grand concept is the fact that the failure of leadership over the years have denied a lot of opportunities. So I think that's a more tenable argument. Yeah, the preachment and all of that, that's just propaganda. Because it's used in the name of religion, doesn't make it in consonance with religion in the first place. Secondly, I'd like to talk to you.
I cannot contest that. That is a fact. You have just encapsulated it. But if you were going to go into it, leadership is the harnessing of all the progressive factors that can help you to achieve a noble objective in moving the people from point A to point B. But if you are negative in your leadership attitude, you will identify the one that will denigrate them and hold them down while you are exploiting them needlessly.
Definitely. And it's also pervasive.
That's the point we are making. You are right, and I agree.
And it's also pervasive.
I'm sorry?
I say, and this poverty we're talking about is also pervasive too. Down south here, we have our own fair share of poverty. And poverty does not know tribe, religion. It doesn't even know your political party affiliation. Poverty is as a result of the poor leadership system we have in the country. But I'd like to quickly now dive into... After the protest, what next? And I'll start by saying, Salih Lukman Mohammed wrote a piece today, a very riveting piece, where he was talking about the fact that all the forces, the centripetal forces in the country, must galvanize towards making the country a whole lot better. I must listen to the yearnings of the young people, because we will definitely have constant repeat and constant agitation if nothing is done about the plight. Now that we've had the protest, what should be this engagement in court we've been talking about? Because the government talked about engagement. It's been a week now, since Monday, since the president gave his speech on Sunday. We have not seen any real engagement. So what should be done? What are the key areas we should work on? There is hunger in the land. Some people say, okay, the price of food is coming down. Some people say it's going up. They start saying over 40% food inflation. What should we work on now?
Very well. The point is that when you know the cause of a problem, the solution is at least 50% disclosed. All it takes is the leadership, the intelligence to take the lead. For example, we know that food insecurity is not just a matter of the issue of subsidy or merging of the exchange rate. It's not only that. It is exacerbated by the fact that there is insecurity in the land, that you cannot go to the farm because of insecurity, herdsmen and whatever. You cannot also harvest anything. A lot of people have told the story. I think one person was talking in the media recently, I think one of in your station, how, yes, he saw cassava planted somewhere in Akwa Ibom. Yes, it was the former senator was saying that he saw herdsmen harvesting cassava and giving to their cows while they used AK-47 to scare the owners. And they had to call the local rangers and the police and law enforcement agencies. This is the story of everywhere in Nigeria now, since after Buhari became president. And you see, unless we address this issue of insecurity, there is no way import everything, even to carry it from point A to another, might become a problem, because they will now waylay people and hijack it on the road. So the important thing is that the government must, it is within the square of the government, is a challenge. And I believe that government has spent enough money, and now accountability needs to be the next order. And being a new government, even though the same party, it gives the government a very good opportunity to raise questions and take a different course from what the other government did. The insecurity in the land is a pervasive factor, a negative factor that is affecting everything. Then the issue of the exchange rate that was merged and the fuel subsidy. I don't understand the issue of subsidy because it's a long time now we have been told that subsidy have been removed. Then another time they bring it back. Then another, and I was telling somebody, never in this country, except something happens, would they want to remove this subsidy because that's an easy way to get unaccounted money that you don't account for. It is slush fund, it's deceptive. No matter the arithmetic that anybody calculates, say there's a landing cost or non-landing cost. I believe that government with sincerity can address and redress this issue of subsidy. And more fundamental approach to that is to make the refineries work. If you have a problem, don't go for the facade. Don't just go for palliatives. Go for solutions. Go for solutions. If you solve the issue of refinery, the non-functional refineries, it is disgraceful that a country like Nigeria, for years, have been given promises and promises while our money is being frittered away in our very presence, that none of the refineries is working. And even when I see the strident effort you people have made in your station to ensure that Dangote refinery gets the attention it requires, because the same forces almost truncated demand, even as Dangote has its own problem, whether it's monopoly or not. We believe that thing that he has put down in Lagos should be able to assist or even catalyze the effort of the local refiners to go to work.
Okay, Dr. Nnaji, let's talk about this narrative that started on X, which happened around the time we're talking about the protest. Some people were quickly in a haste to make it about ethnicity. Then we saw that anti-Igbo protest that was going to start, that some people said was going to start from the 20th of August. What's your take about this talk back and forth about Igbo-phobia? I'm sure you have very strong, passionate feelings about this.
Well, Rufai, you see, the word Igbo evokes a lot of sentiment among so many people in this country of different ethnic, religious, and even educational background. Unfortunately, these people we are talking about, to which ethnic group I belong, are very innocuous. All that you have is that they are misunderstood. When a particular chemical is behaving in a chemical reaction, if you don't understand it, you think that maybe if it is bubbling, you think it's doing gra-gra. That is its nature. So the Igbos have, I used to tell people that Igbos are like the palm kernel. They suffer double jeopardy. As it is crying, the kernel, as it is crying that they have shelled it, they just pick it and put in the mouth and crack it with the teeth. That is double jeopardy, which is even unconstitutional. The law does not allow double jeopardy. The Igbos are the ones that work very hard and give definition and meaning to true federalism by the way they freely move around in this country, using their resources to develop the little area they are, exercising some influence, and being meaningful members of societies wherever they are found. It is in the Igbo blood not to beg. I don't mean any harm, but it is not in our blood to beg. If you see an Igbo man in the street and he speaks Igbo, and you ask him whether you will not give him money, because you tell him, go and do something. We are a people that are not taken by so much pride. An Igbo man is ready to carry anything with a polythene bag until he is able to raise money to buy a car, and he will do so joyfully. Yes, that is the Igbo man for you. The Igbo man is somebody who does not want anybody to pocket him, because he believes in self-development, independence. That's why even if you are a chief, you want to tell an Igbo man son, you say, are you feeding me? Because he knows he will fend for himself. It is not disrespectful. Some people may think that he's being disrespectful. It is that he's exercising his freedom of being an independent person. So when a group of people, especially during the last election, started saying that the Igbo people who just came out like every other person, the Igbo man, there were Igbo people voting for APC, there were Igbo people voting for PDP, there were those voting for Labour, there were those who just didn't even bother going to vote for anybody. They didn't see any political party that will end their vote, and yet they were singled out. So it appears from what you have said, the Igbos have been in the cold before the onset of Harmattan. So these things, the other time it was the North, the Northern youth told the Igbos to leave. I want to ask a question. Is this being motivated by the fact that some people think that Igbos, when they leave, they will own their shops or own their properties? Even if, assuming without conceding, that there's no constitutional guarantee for freedom of movement or owning property in different locations of this country, that Igbos were supposed to go, will they just walk away like that as passengers? It's not going to happen like that. So those people who are carrying the embers of division should be cautioned. And let me tell you, Rufai, as I sit down here, I am uncle to so many Yoruba people on account of interethnic marriages. And we know that interethnic marriages in Igbo land, they say, no in-law can harm his fellow in-law. And this is the same principle that is working at the racial level. Miscegenation, intermarriages between one race and the other, that is the ground on which Obama eventually became the president of America. Okay. And so on and so forth. In Britain, in every other place. Some of those people who are claiming...
So let me ask you this. Do you think the perpetrators of this act or those that found these embers have been properly dealt with? Like, we've not seen the arrest of those that control Lagos
by
media.
Now,
we've not seen those arrests. What do you feel about that?
Rufai, it is very disgraceful, to say the least, that even the federal government, the DSS, the police, and all the security agencies that were gallivanting the entire space, when the ordinary harmless protesters propounding different theories that they knew those people who were sponsoring it, that beyond the faces they saw, that none of them. The other day on your station, the deputy governor was claiming that he never heard by Onanuga's rantings. And you were, as objectively as you used to be, asking him whether he had never seen anything on social media or heard. He said no. Okay, give it to him that he's incapable of, like Buhari, knowing everything happening around him. And you put it to him. Well, you could see how feeble he handled it. So the whole thing tells the story that what we call sublimation, you may want some of those people who think that they are doing the president or their governor or anything any good because they think that they are helping them. They are harming their government inadvertently. Now, those people who keep quiet when they ought to have acted are giving the impression that some people were speaking their mind. In the same manner, psychologically, those who go to see wrestling have a tendency for violence, but they sublimate these things through those who are trained to do it physically. In the same thing, those who watch pornography, and so on and so forth. The truth of the matter is that the federal government, the state government has not done anything. Neither of them have done anything that
you don't feel happy about this.
It doesn't, sorry, Rufai. Yeah. It doesn't have to take the National Assembly members of Igbo origin to go to IGP, for IGP to do so. What is he doing there as the #1 police officer? He doesn't need to be activated by order. That is the job he ought to do. Because the National Security Advisor too, they will all sit down there ensconced. If anything happens, it will be a challenge to the same government they are trying to protect, even from ordinary protest. Because the ramifications will be very, very difficult. Okay. What are you going to tell Igbo people, children of Igbo women born in Yoruba land, that you are dealing with their uncles, you are dealing with their brothers, and so on? The whole thing is mixed. So nobody should go for this stupid profiling.
Real quickly, we totally condemn any form of ethnic profiling across board in this country. And it should never repeat itself because we have not still healed from what happened at the Civil War, and I must repeat.
Absolutely.
Why was the protest not, like they say in Nigerian parlance, strong in the East? They said there's been a sentiment that, no, we are not going to join this because, hey, we don't want to be seen as those that have joined this again. Is that a sentiment you want to, build upon? Why was the protest not strong in the East?
Rufai, if you look at me, you see that I'm smiling. The Igbos have become the proverbial tortoise. If tortoise does something, it will be taken.
Are you doing the Gwangwangwa?
It will be taken.
Are you part of the Gwangwangwa story?
I saw you there. The Gwangwangwa is an old music that have been brought in now because the setting is about the same thing that Mike Ejaya was predicting or telling about in his... but being very serious beyond that, like I said, we have been in the cold before the onset of the Harmattan. The Igbo man realized that even if he does anything right, it will not be acceptable. To a certain, not every Nigerian. The discerning ones are doing business with Igbos and they are benefiting. And Igbos are also benefiting in the transaction. Because transaction is a two-way traffic. Everybody gets something from it. But those who think that they will sit down and when Igbos live in their own warped imagination, they will come and own the shop, they will come and own their hotel, that is not going to happen. So those ones are not the ones doing any right to the government. And the people in government should know they are not their friends. They are not their friends. So the point is that the Igbos did not participate in the manner that some people were expecting. Because the level of hunger the Igbos have been subjected, the level of petition they have been subjected is beyond what ordinary people now are experiencing. I used to talk about the allegory of pot of soup. I said it on your channel, the last time I came on your program, I said it on channels and so on and so forth. The allegory of the pot of soup is that before you make a pot of soup, all the condiments must be subjected to the same temperature, even if differentially. You can start boiling pomo or stockfish, but you end up with vegetable for 5 minutes. But the culmination of the temperature is where the vegetable enters. So the Igbos are already the pomo boiling in the hot water since many years. Okay. So that's why you cannot see them running around. They are fending for themselves. They know now that nobody can fend for them other than their own effort. Just like the proverbial cow that asked God to help it to have tail enough, long enough to fend flies.
Thank you
That's
so much.
what happened. It's not that the Igbos are not feeling pains.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nnaji. I just asked you the reason why the protest was not, as strong in the East, but you just took me around.
There is nothing wrong. Some people participated in the level they wanted, but it's not that we had to go in the streets and so on. We have been protesting long before now.
Okay, and your answer just reminded me of Mike Ejaka's folklore tale of the Enyi. That's the elephant and the tortoise. Mike Ejiaga, and I'm sure people could read between the lines and get it. But thank you so much, for spending your Sunday with us this evening. Really appreciate you for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rufai.